The Prime Minister today gazumped Labor leader Anthony Albanese. On the day that Albanese was booked, miles ahead of time, last year or something, on the very day he actually was meant to give his big speech on defence, Scott Morrison came screaming over the top to announce that he'd be increasing the size of our defence forces by a third. He'd hire 18,000 more soldiers, sailors and airmen, in the biggest increase in our peacetime history. Joining me is the Defence Minister, Peter Dutton. Peter Dutton, thank you so much for your time. Why do we need a bigger armed force?
Andrew, we need a bigger armed force because that's the reality of the threats that we face in the coming years and in the coming decades. And in the Indo-Pacific, we know it's a very uncertain period. I don't think anybody even 5 years ago would have picked that Russia was going into Ukraine and there could be a broader war in Europe. So this is about preparing for the future and defending our country.
Well, you make clear, of course, that a war comes faster than people predict. The catch here is that we won't get all these soldiers for another 20 years. Soldiers, airmen, Navy. That's about when we're going to get the first and only the first of our new nuclear submarines. It's all a bit too late, isn't it?
Well, we steadily build up, and already we've put more people into defence, and we'll have more to say about that as well. But we have a dramatic ramp up in 2027, 28, and then it's a gentler build up beyond that. But it's in accordance with the number of programs that we have when we expect delivery of different platforms. And as I've said before, Andrew, I think we will take our new nuclear submarines into service much more quickly than the timelines that have been publicly acknowledged at the moment. And we're in a discussion with the US and the UK on that. I'm very confident that we can deliver on that, but we'll have more to say about that at the appropriate time.
You don't think it's all a bit late, that we should have got cracking much earlier in preparing, that we were asleep at the wheel?
Well, Andrew, I've been the Defence Minister for 12 months, so I've done the best that I can during that time. Do I wish that Kevin Rudd and Anthony Albanese and Julia Gillard had have ordered even just a single ship or a single submarine when they were in government? Yes, absolutely, I do. And unfortunately, as we know, the nuclear sub deal was never on the table until just recently. We've snatched that deal. No other government's been able to do that, and we'll condense the timelines as quickly as possible. But these platforms don't get delivered overnight, and we have to be very clear about that. I would love to be commissioning a nuclear submarine or just a conventional submarine, or even just a dinghy that the Gillard government ordered. But of course, when Anthony Albanese was in government, they ripped money from defence, not just from the projects, but from the men and women of the ADF and from ASIO and from ACIS and the other intelligence agencies, because they lost control of our borders.
Yeah, but then again, that's ignoring the fact that the Liberal Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, ordered the wrong sub in the first place. So there you go. But you spoke about Anthony Albanese, the Labor leader. He today gave a big speech on his defence policy, suggesting that he was just as strong on national defence. But then he said to get the head of the Office of National Intelligence and the Secretary of your Defence Department to look at how global warming was a national security threat. Are you going to ask our top defence and intelligence experts to do the same?
No, I'm not. It's very clear in my mind what the threat is in our region, and if Anthony Albanese can't see that, then alarm bells should be ringing everywhere. See, Andrew, this is exactly what Labor did when they came into government in 2007. Remember Kevin Rudd saying that he was an economic conservative, just like John Howard? They would have exactly the same border protection policies as the Howard government. Well, the fact is that when they get into government, they undo it all, because the left of the Labor Party, headed by Mr Albanese himself over the last 20 years, has been very clear that they don't support the border protection policies. They don't support the men and women of the Australian Defence Force, and they certainly don't pretend, even when they get into government, whilst they try and fool you in opposition, that they're going to put more money into defence. They would never have come up with this submarine deal that we've come up with, or the decision to buy the Black Hawks, we've commissioned 60 odd boats that are under construction, and I just think, look at what they do when they're in government, not what they say they'll do when they're in opposition. Anthony Albanese is playing a smart game by being a small target, but what he's believed in for 20 years, he's now telling you that that's irrelevant, that he believes the complete opposite in the last 20 weeks before an election. It's complete nonsense, and frankly, he should be called out for it.
Well, I'm not looking at what he's doing. I'm looking at what he's saying. I mean, saying that global warming is going to be what the top officials in the defence establishment are going to look at. I mean, give me a break. Ukraine, the defence forces there have shown brilliantly how important missiles are in defending themselves, or for any country really, from an invasion, particularly against overwhelming force, of course. Whether they're fired from the shoulder or fired from a drone or fired from a plane, missiles. Why have we got so few missiles ourselves?
Well, Andrew, in the Ukraine, where you've got a land border just a matter of miles, you can shoot a missile or, as you say, a grenade, different platforms that you can use to go a short distance to get across into Russia or into Belarus, and that's the situation in close combat. We're, of course, an island nation of 25 million people, a long way away from many of the countries that, in Europe or in Asia. We're a long way from Beijing, and there are different platforms that we would use. So the investment that we've made in our fast jets, the investment that we've made in our submarines, our existing fleet of the Collins class, the Tomahawk missiles, the guided weapons enterprise, the investment that we're making with the US at the moment in hypersonics, all of that is more relevant to the geography of our country. If we were fighting in Afghanistan, or if we had ground troops in a part of Europe, then of course that's exactly the weaponry that we would arm them with. But firing, a short-range missile from even the north of Australia is going to land in water, and so we need to be realistic about comparing apples with apples, which is obviously a very different situation in the Ukraine. And like everyone, I just hope and pray that they continue the resistance and repel the evilness of Vladimir Putin.
Maybe that Chinese patrol ship or destroyer that painted one of our aircraft with a laser in just the waters to our north might not have been so cheeky had they known that we'd have a few missiles that could blow them out of the water if they tried that too often. Ukraine, can it win this war?
Look, I think when you look at the Ukraine, your heart tells you that you want people to continue their resistance, and the leadership of President Zelensky, I think, he's a 21st century hero. But the threat of chemical weapons being used by Putin, the barbaric behaviour otherwise of the troops, if it comes to it, I mean, Putin must win, he must succeed, or he will be deposed, clearly. So he's in a very, pressured position at the moment, and the sanctions are working against Russia. The world needs to keep up that effort. I'd love to see the troops out of the Ukraine tomorrow, but this guy's, on a path of madness, and it's going to continue for some time.
Peter Dutton, thank you so much for your time.